Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, cognitive subconscious patterns, audio, visual, and kinesthetic. Some people process the world through what they hear, language, tone, rhythm, and inner dialogue. Others are attuned to what they see, patterns, aesthetics, structure, and symmetry. And some are rooted in what they feel, through the body, through emotion, and through experience. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the sun and co-ruled by Mercury, is deeply connected to structure, responsibility, service, and alignment. Its subconscious tends to process in clear, structured patterns, often favoring auditory and visual styles, especially when integrity, understanding, or social order is involved. Yet when emotionally invested or physically burdened, kinesthetic processing can emerge, particularly in caretaking or healing roles. The dominant mode depends on planetary placements, especially in the first, third, fifth, or 10th houses, where perception, communication, and duty meet. If Mercury is in the first house in Uttara Phalguni, the processing style is primarily auditory. These individuals think in words, dialogue, and inner logic. They are highly verbal, whether through writing, speaking, or self-directed inner conversations. Their subconscious categorizes experience through tone, phrasing, and conceptual clarity. If Mercury is in the 10th, this auditory sharpness becomes a public skill. They use structured speech, professional communication, or precise language to lead, advise, or coordinate, often in administrative or service-based roles. If Sun is in the first house, visual processing is likely. These individuals process through light, clarity, order, and visible alignment. They often remember what they see and are drawn to structure, planning, and recognizable patterns. They are sensitive to how things look, ethically, socially, or literally, and often evaluate situations based on what is visible and coherent. If Sun is in the 10th, this visual orientation becomes even more structured. They take in the bigger picture of leadership, public responsibility, or societal roles and align their actions with how they want to be perceived. If Moon is in the 4th or 5th house, the style shifts toward kinesthetic emotional processing. These individuals experience life through emotional flow, bodily sensation, and physical comfort. They remember how things felt, what environments evoked, and what their body or heart told them. They may process more slowly, especially in matters of care or creativity, but what they retain is embodied. If Moon is in the 10th, this kinesthetic awareness gets projected into public or caregiving roles. They feel responsible for others' well-being and subconsciously absorb the emotional climate of their environment, especially at work. If Venus is in the 3rd or 5th house, visual processing is softened by aesthetic intelligence. These individuals retain beauty, style, and tone. They think in design, symmetry, and what feels right visually. Their subconscious seeks balance and expression, and they often communicate with refined elegance or artistic timing. If Venus is in the 10th, this becomes a public asset. They project polished charm, aligning aesthetic with service or leadership. If K2 is in the 1st or 5th, processing may bypass logic entirely, becoming intuitive, symbolic, and nonlinear. These individuals often feel their knowledge but can't explain why. They download impressions, insights, or truths without needing step-by-step reasoning. Their cognitive world is quiet, contemplative, and more spiritual than sensory. They may seem distant, but are often operating on a deeper inner knowing. Uttara Phalguni's subconscious prefers structure, alignment, and coherence, whether through sound, pattern, or presence. It values clarity, even in emotion, and processes best when the inner world feels anchored. When overwhelmed, they may shut down emotionally or overcompensate through order and obligation. Their growth lies in learning to honor how they perceive, not just what is correct or responsible, but what feels whole and true. When they align their perception with purpose, they become powerful bridges between intellect, service, and soul. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, motivation direction, towards versus away from. Some individuals move toward growth, purpose, and accomplishment, driven by a vision of what they want to build or become. Others are motivated by the desire to prevent disorder, avoid failure, or minimize discomfort, operating from a place of responsibility, caution, or preservation. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the sun and co-ruled by Mercury, leans naturally toward a towards motivation style, especially when duty, leadership, or social responsibility is involved. These natives often feel called to build, serve, and elevate, not just themselves, but the systems and people around them. However, their deeply ethical nature and connection to service can also trigger an away from pattern, particularly when they fear failure, judgment, or letting others down. Whether they act out of vision or obligation depends on planetary placements, especially in the first, sixth, and 10th houses, where selfhood, service, and societal roles intersect. If Sun is in the first house in Uttara Phalguni, the motivation is strongly towards. These individuals seek to embody purpose, integrity, and leadership. They act to achieve alignment between who they are and what they represent. Their drive is rooted in self-respect and a desire to shine with meaning. If Sun is in the 10th house, this motivation expands into public ambition. They are driven to contribute, lead, and create a legacy that reflects their core values. If Saturn is in the 6th house, the motivation tilts away from. These individuals are often driven by duty, responsibility, and the desire to avoid mistakes, criticism, or chaos. They work tirelessly, not necessarily to achieve glory, but to avoid falling short. Their motivation is grounded, dependable, and sometimes burdened. If Saturn is in the 10th, this becomes even more pronounced. They may build impressive careers, but the engine behind it is often a deep fear of failure or being seen as inadequate. They act because they must, not always because they want to. If Mercury is in the 3rd house, the motivation is toward in a communicative or intellectual sense. These individuals enjoy learning, planning, teaching, and expressing. They are motivated by ideas, dialogue, and the refinement of systems. If Mercury is in the 10th, their drive becomes practical. They are drawn to strategic or administrative leadership, taking initiative in work or public spaces where clarity and precision are needed. If Rahu is in the 1st house, motivation becomes hyper towards. These individuals are driven by transformation, recognition, and the urge to rise beyond limits. There may be an insatiable push towards success, identity evolution, or personal power, though sometimes without a clear emotional grounding. If Rahu is in the 10th, this drive becomes socially focused. They may chase influence, visibility, or mastery, often in unconventional ways and with a strong desire to break out of mediocrity. If Moon is in the 6th house, the motivation may subtly lean away from, especially emotionally. These natives are sensitive to discord and often act to restore order, protect their emotional balance, or help others. Their motivation may come from avoiding tension or discomfort, and they often step into service roles not for recognition, but because they can't ignore what needs to be fixed. If Moon is in the 10th, the emotional motivation becomes public. They feel responsible for how others feel, often sacrificing personal ease to maintain social or professional peace. Uttara Phalguni's core motivation is to do what is right, build what is lasting, and serve with purpose. At their best, they are toward-driven visionaries, motivated by ideals and the desire to uplift. But when burdened or unbalanced, their drive can shift to away from, motivated by duty, fear of failure, or the weight of responsibility. Their growth lies in learning that service and success need not be heavy, that they can move toward light, not just away from shadows. When they act from inspired alignment rather than quiet pressure, they become radiant stewards of both purpose and peace. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, understanding chunk size, big or little. Some individuals grasp the world through big ideas, systems, values, and overarching truths. Others process by focusing on specifics, breaking information down into clear, manageable parts. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun and co-ruled by Mercury, leans slightly toward big chunk processing. These natives are drawn to purpose, structure, and ethical clarity. Yet their Mercury influence allows them to shift into little chunk detail work, especially in service or planning roles. Which style dominates depends on planetary placements, especially in the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 10th houses. If Sun is in the 1st house, the understanding style is strongly big chunk. These individuals seek meaning, identity, and life direction. The solar nature of Uttara Phalguni adds a sense of purpose. They want to know where things are going and why they matter. If Sun is in the 10th, they focus on social impact, using knowledge as a tool to lead, influence, and uphold moral order. Their thinking is less about isolated facts and more about the full picture of identity, legacy, and responsibility. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, little chunk processing becomes dominant. These individuals thrive on order, categorization, and clarity, especially in communication and daily functions. Mercury's influence sharpens Uttara Phalguni's service-driven mindset, allowing these natives to structure their thoughts into practical outputs. They are natural planners, editors, and coordinators who prefer clean lines of logic and communication. In professional roles, they shine when they can translate large systems into actionable tasks. If Moon is in the 5th or 9th house, the chunk size depends on emotional context. In the 5th, they process experience in emotionally layered fragments, remembering specific feelings, interactions, and impressions. Uttara Phalguni's nurturing quality heightens this emotional memory, especially in love or creativity. In the 9th, the emotional perspective expands. They begin to interpret emotion through philosophy, stories, or ancestral wisdom, but often return to emotional details to ground their broader understanding. If Jupiter is in the 1st, 9th, or 10th house, big chunk processing takes precedence. These natives absorb themes, values, and teachings holistically, often bypassing minutiae in favor of wisdom. Uttara Phalguni's integrity-driven nature makes this placement particularly powerful. They align knowledge with moral guidance, seeking to embody what they learn. They naturally connect abstract concepts to service, teaching, or leadership. Their mind looks for the deeper reason behind the rules. If Ketu is in the 1st or 5th, processing becomes symbolic, nonlinear, or karmic. These natives may not follow traditional structures of learning, often receiving knowledge through intuition, emotional resonance, or subtle downloads. In Uttara Phalguni, this can create tension. They seek clarity and structure, yet their deepest insights may come through surrender and detachment. Their understanding is often profound, but difficult to articulate, feeling more remembered than learned. Uttara Phalguni's strength lies in its ability to combine the clarity of structure with the depth of meaning. Whether they lead with big picture vision or refined detail, their mind is built to organize knowledge into systems that support purpose, fairness, and function. Their evolution lies in knowing when to zoom in to serve others and when to zoom out to guide them. When balanced, they offer not just understanding, but wise implementation. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, attention direction, self or others. Some people navigate life with a strong internal compass, tracking their thoughts, values, and intentions through a self-oriented lens. Others are naturally attuned to the needs, feelings, and expectations of those around them, placing their attention outward. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, ego, purpose, and co-ruled by Mercury, communication, adaptability, tends to balance both, but often leans toward an others-oriented attention style. These natives are driven by duty, partnership, and social responsibility, and often measure their value by how well they support, guide, or serve others. However, their solar influence ensures that the self is never fully forgotten. Whether their attention flows inward or outward depends on planetary placements, especially in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses, where identity, emotional security, and public roles are most actively shaped. If Sun is in the 1st house in Uttara Phalguni, the attention is strongly self-directed. These individuals are conscious of their purpose, image, and inner alignment. They track how they are perceived, but only in relation to how it reflects their personal integrity. They act with intention, often consulting their inner authority before yielding to others. If Sun is in the 10th house, the attention expands publicly. They focus on legacy, leadership, and their impact on the world, but may become hyper-aware of how others see them, blending self and others into a performance of responsibility. If Moon is in the 4th house, the attention is deeply self-focused, especially emotionally. These individuals retreat inward to process, feeling their way through decisions based on personal comfort, security, or emotional history. They may serve others, but their attention returns to the inner home. If Moon is in the 7th, this flips. They become highly responsive to partners, reading emotional energy and seeking harmony in one-on-one dynamics. They may sometimes lose touch with their own feelings by focusing too much on relational balance. If Mercury is in the 3rd house, the attention tends to move outward toward others, especially through communication. These natives are quick to pick up on feedback, tone, and social cues. They enjoy adjusting and clarifying, often thinking aloud in response to what others say. If Mercury is in the 10th, this external attention becomes professional. They're mindful of how they present ideas publicly, often tailoring their words to meet expectations or uphold their role. If Saturn is in the 6th house, attention can lean inward, but from a place of duty. These individuals are deeply aware of their responsibilities and shortcomings, and may track themselves closely to avoid error. While they serve others, the internal dialogue can be harsh, perfectionistic, or highly self-regulating. If Saturn is in the 10th, the attention becomes structured around others' expectations. They feel watched, evaluated, or responsible for upholding standards. Their energy goes into meeting those expectations, sometimes at the cost of inner ease. If Rahu is in the 1st house, the attention becomes self-intensified, but in an unstable way. These individuals are fixated on how they appear, grow, or evolve, constantly checking in with their self-image, sometimes obsessively. If Rahu is in the 7th, the focus turns toward others in a consuming way. They may become overly absorbed in relationships, validation, or social reflection, often struggling to define who they are outside of those connections. Uttara Phalguni's default is to balance self as a guide, others as a mirror. They want to serve, uplift, and align with their role in the world, but also need to feel personally honorable, grounded, and seen. Their growth lies in learning to serve others without losing themselves, and to honor themselves without isolating from those they're meant to support. When they master this balance, they become luminous examples of quiet power, rooted in selfhood, radiant in service. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra. Frame of reference, internal or external. Some individuals make decisions by consulting their inner compass, personal beliefs, feelings, and intuitive judgment. Others seek guidance from external sources, social norms, authority figures, or public feedback. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, self-integrity, and co-ruled by Mercury, communication, adaptability, often walks the line between both. By nature, it tends toward an internal frame of reference, especially when it comes to values, ethics, and responsibility. However, its strong sense of duty and social consciousness can shift it toward external referencing, particularly in work or public roles. Which direction dominates depends on planetary placements, especially in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses, where identity, emotional grounding, and public validation intersect. If Sun is in the 1st house, the frame of reference is firmly internal. These individuals trust their inner authority and act in alignment with personal truth. They often evaluate decisions through the lens of integrity and purpose, rarely needing approval to feel certain. Uttara Phalguni's solar influence reinforces this, encouraging self-leadership and a quiet, unwavering confidence. If Sun is in the 10th, the internal compass is still present, but filtered through public responsibility. They begin to ask, what's the right thing to do in this role? Blending internal principle with external accountability. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the frame begins to shift toward external. These individuals are highly responsive to input, often seeking information, opinions, or feedback to refine their thinking. In Uttara Phalguni, this shows up as a desire to serve or advise well, so they may look outward to ensure they're meeting expectations clearly. In the 10th, this becomes amplified. They learn to speak the language of their audience and adjust their delivery based on social or professional reception. If Moon is in the 4th house, the frame of reference is emotional and internal. These natives act from a place of emotional truth, safety, and private resonance. Uttara Phalguni's nurturing quality emphasizes this. It needs to feel right emotionally before moving forward. However, if Moon is in the 7th or 10th, the emotional compass begins to externalize. They seek harmony in relationships or social environments, often checking how others feel before they act. Their sense of security becomes tied to others' reactions. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the frame leans heavily external. These individuals are motivated by responsibility, structure, and societal standards. In Uttara Phalguni, this reinforces the desire to serve properly, fulfill roles dutifully, and live up to external expectations. They may override personal instincts to do what is required, especially in work or public life. This can create a split between inner truth and outer obligation. If Jupiter is in the first or ninth house, the reference point becomes internal, but with a moral or spiritual lens. These individuals evaluate decisions based on philosophical alignment and long-term purpose. In Uttara Phalguni, this manifests as principled leadership. They follow inner wisdom, but are still aware of how their actions ripple outward. They don't need permission to act, but they do want their actions to reflect a deeper ethical order. Uttara Phalguni's maturity lies in its ability to hold both inner clarity and outer responsibility. When aligned, these natives consult their inner truth and then translate it into meaningful service or contribution. Their challenge is not to lose themselves in duty or dismiss feedback in the name of pride. When balanced, they become radiant examples of self-aware leadership, choosing to act not because the world demands it, but because their inner compass says, "This is right." Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, action preference, proactive or reactive. Some people step forward before they're asked, driven by inner resolve, clarity of purpose, or a desire to take the lead. Others prefer to wait, watch, and respond, letting context and timing shape their movement. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, initiative leadership, and co-ruled by Mercury, strategy analysis, leans toward a proactive action style. These natives are natural initiators, driven by service, structure, and a deep sense of responsibility. However, their Mercury influence and strong sense of ethics can sometimes temper that impulse, shifting them into reactive behavior, especially when fairness, social order, or timing feel off. Planetary placements in the 1st, 6th, and 10th houses often reveal how this action preference is expressed. If Sun is in the 1st house, the action style is clearly proactive. These individuals move with confidence and purpose, often stepping forward to lead, organize, or fix. In Uttara Phalguni, this action is guided by principles. They don't act impulsively, but from a strong inner compass. They prefer to be the ones who set the tone and take charge before things fall apart. If Sun is in the 10th, their proactivity becomes public. They step into leadership roles, take initiative in professional settings, and act with the intent to build legacy and order. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 6th house, the action becomes strategically proactive. These individuals take initiative through communication, planning, or problem solving. In Uttara Phalguni, Mercury's detail-oriented nature shows up in quiet but efficient action. They're often the first to respond to disorganization or miscommunication. If Mercury is in the 10th, this becomes part of their public skill. They proactively manage systems, people, or projects, often through subtle, intelligent effort rather than dramatic displays. If Moon is in the 4th house, the action style becomes more reactive, especially emotionally. These individuals act when they feel safe, secure, or emotionally attuned. In Uttara Phalguni, where nurturing and responsibility intersect, they may hesitate to act until they've processed what feels fair, harmonious, or appropriate. If Moon is in the 10th, the emotional reactivity becomes external. They may act to stabilize social dynamics or public roles, but still tend to respond more than initiate, especially when feelings are unclear. If Saturn is in the 6th house, the action style is reactive but structured. These natives are cautious, measured, and tend to act only when the path is clear and responsibility is defined. In Uttara Phalguni, this creates a sense of duty. They may not initiate quickly, but once they step in, they do so with focus and endurance. If Saturn is in the 10th, their reactivity becomes tied to status or work. They often act in response to external expectations or long-term goals, preferring to do what's necessary rather than what's immediate. If Rahu is in the 1st house, the action preference skews hyper-proactive, sometimes erratically so. These individuals chase impact, transformation, or recognition, often acting boldly before fully assessing emotional or ethical implications. In Uttara Phalguni, this can create internal tension between the desire to lead and the need to lead responsibly. If Rahu is in the 10th, this drive becomes social or karmic. They act to rise, disrupt, or distinguish themselves, often in unconventional but effective ways. Uttara Phalguni thrives when intent and action align, when they act not just from impulse, but from service, clarity, and principle. Their challenge is knowing when to lead and when to hold back, when to step in because it's right, not just because it's expected. When balanced, they become powerful agents of order, stepping forward not to dominate, but to support and uplift with steady hands and conscious will. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, operational style, options versus procedures. Some people operate best when they have freedom, exploring multiple paths, shifting plans, and adapting in the moment. Others prefer clearly defined systems, procedures, step-by-step methods, and structures that provide consistency. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, order, leadership, and co-ruled by Mercury, precision, service, leans naturally toward a procedural operational style. These natives thrive on organization, routines, and responsibilities. They want things to work smoothly and ethically. Yet their Mercury influence brings intelligence and flexibility, allowing them to toggle into an options-based mindset when creativity or collaboration demands it. Their dominant style depends on planetary placements, particularly in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses, where action, service, and career expression meet. If Sun is in the 1st or 10th house, the native strongly favors procedures. These individuals feel grounded when roles are clear, expectations are known, and processes are respected. In Uttara Phalguni, the Sun's influence adds purpose. They don't just follow structure, they embody it, often becoming the one who sets the standard for others. Their operations are driven by a sense of responsibility and consistency. When in the 10th, they bring structure to leadership, ensuring systems reflect integrity and function. If Mercury is in the 3rd house, the operational style becomes more options-oriented. These individuals are flexible thinkers, able to shift between plans and adapt quickly. In Uttara Phalguni, this brings a clever, service-minded approach. They may bend routines in favor of efficiency or communication, but still aim to deliver results. If Mercury is in the 10th, they find balance, adapting within a professional framework, knowing when to innovate and when to follow established methods. If Moon is in the 4th or 6th house, the operational style is emotionally nuanced. In the 4th, they may appear procedural outwardly, but are internally driven by comfort and rhythm, not rigid logic. In Uttara Phalguni, this creates a quiet need for order, but one rooted in emotional balance. In the 6th, the Moon's placement leans procedural. They maintain routines for emotional security, often linking their sense of worth to how well they serve or manage responsibilities. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, procedures dominate. These natives are systematic, detail-oriented, and focused on doing things the right way. In Uttara Phalguni, Saturn strengthens their sense of duty. They prefer predictable environments and may resist change unless it's proven necessary. These individuals are pillars of structure, often responsible for enforcing or maintaining operational integrity in group or professional settings. If Rahu is in the 3rd or 6th house, the operational style becomes options-driven, but with a twist. These individuals like to push limits, challenge norms, and find unorthodox ways of solving problems. In Uttara Phalguni, this can create inner conflict. They want to serve and do right, but they also resist being boxed in. Their genius lies in reimagining procedures, preserving purpose while disrupting stale routines to improve systems. Uttara Phalguni's strength lies in its natural affinity for structure, but not rigidity. These natives know the value of rules, but also when to edit them. Their evolution comes from knowing when to lean into proven systems and when to allow fresh solutions. At their best, they combine the dependability of procedures with the intelligence of adaptable thinking, creating systems that serve not just order, but people. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, views, general or specific. Some individuals are wired to see the general. They gravitate toward overarching themes, long-term meaning, and big-picture truths. Others are more specific, focusing on details, precision, and the step-by-step logic that brings structure to understanding. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, broad, purposeful vision, and co-ruled by Mercury, detail, clarity, often integrates both, but tends to lean toward a general worldview. These natives are drawn to ideals of fairness, service, and order, seeking systems and patterns that align with higher values. However, when in roles of responsibility, planning, or refinement, they can shift easily into specific perception, especially when details serve a bigger ethical or social function. Planetary placements in the first, third, fifth, and 10th houses reveal how this balance is expressed. If Sun is in the first or 10th house, the view is primarily general. These individuals naturally scan life through the lens of purpose, asking, what does this mean for the whole, rather than getting lost in the fine print? In Uttara Phalguni, this broad lens is value-based. They want to create harmony, lead with integrity, and understand how people and systems fit into a greater societal or moral arc. When in the 10th, this expands into social leadership. They take a bird's-eye view when solving problems or guiding others. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the focus shifts more toward the specific. These individuals enjoy precision, clarity, and the mastery of small components, whether in speech, thought, or execution. In Uttara Phalguni, this creates a thoughtful blend, the ability to break down complex ideas in service of broader ideals. In professional roles, they may toggle between big-picture strategy and the micro-level details needed to make it happen. If Moon is in the 4th or 5th house, the perspective is often emotionally specific. These natives remember moments, tone, atmosphere, and small emotional cues, especially within family or creative environments. In Uttara Phalguni, this emotional focus is filtered through duty. They recall what worked, what was said, and what felt right. When in the 9th or 10th, their perception can widen. They start to connect emotional experiences to philosophical or societal meaning, while still carrying the emotional detail that grounds it. If Jupiter is in the 1st or 9th house, the perception is clearly general. These individuals view life as an evolving path, guided by wisdom, belief, and long-term vision. In Uttara Phalguni, Jupiter expands their moral or spiritual lens. They process experience through values, asking, what is the larger purpose here? They may not notice every detail, but they intuitively align with patterns of justice, growth, and teaching. If Ketu is in the 3rd or 5th, perception becomes symbolic and nonlinear. These natives may see flashes of truth through metaphors, impressions, or karmic echoes. In Uttara Phalguni, this can create tension between their need for clarity and their instinctive, mystical perception. They may bypass both specific and general thinking, seeing things in layers or waves, but struggling to articulate what they sense. Uttara Phalguni's true strength lies in connecting the specific to the general, seeing how the smallest action reflects the biggest principle. These natives evolve when they can shift between levels of awareness, grounding their ideals in structure and applying details in service of a bigger cause. When balanced, they become wise builders of both thought and society, able to lead with vision and support with clarity. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, work preferences, together, proximity, or solo. Some people work best in teams, energized by collaboration, mutual support, and shared responsibility. Others prefer proximity, independent yet near others for occasional exchange. And some do their best work solo, needing space, control, and minimal interference. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, leadership, individual purpose, and co-ruled by Mercury, service, precision, leans naturally toward proximity, with a strong ability to function independently, but a preference for structure, shared values, and purposeful connection. These natives enjoy being in environments where everyone has a role and mutual respect is present. However, their sense of duty and self-respect also allows them to function solo, especially when leadership or responsibility demands it. Planetary placements in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses offer insight into how this work preference is expressed. If Sun is in the 1st or 10th house, the native often prefers to work solo, but with visibility and impact. These individuals take pride in their contributions and prefer autonomy in how they execute tasks. In Uttara Phalguni, the Sun's influence creates a sense of responsibility and purpose. They may enjoy working with others, but only if they maintain clear authority or creative control. In the 10th, they shine as responsible leaders who prefer to delegate, guide, and take ownership. If Mercury is in the 3rd house, the native enjoys working in proximity. They thrive when surrounded by communicative, task-oriented peers. In Uttara Phalguni, this shows up as cooperative service. They're productive when they can move freely while exchanging ideas or assisting others. If Mercury is in the 10th, this becomes more public. They may prefer roles involving coordination, teaching, or strategic advising, where they operate semi-independently within a larger structure. If Moon is in the 4th or 6th house, the preference leans toward solo, especially in emotionally charged or nurturing environments. These individuals value peace and emotional clarity at work. In Uttara Phalguni, which is sensitive to responsibility, this emotional need for calm may make them prefer quiet, autonomous roles where they can control the emotional atmosphere. If Moon is in the 10th, they may serve publicly, but still require emotional boundaries, working in visible roles without emotional entanglement. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the native can function well in structured togetherness or proximity. These individuals respect systems, roles, and boundaries. In Uttara Phalguni, Saturn enhances the ability to work in service to others while maintaining clear task divisions. They work best when everyone has defined responsibilities and they don't have to compensate for others' lack of discipline. In leadership roles, they often manage with quiet consistency, preferring to lead by example. If Rahu is in the 3rd or 10th house, the work style becomes independently ambitious, leaning towards solo with a desire for recognition. These individuals may resist collaborative routines and prefer to forge their own methods or climb through unconventional means. In Uttara Phalguni, this brings drive and charisma, but can clash with team dynamics unless channeled into leadership or innovative roles where autonomy is rewarded. Uttara Phalguni thrives in purpose-driven environments, where work is clear, structured, and aligned with values. They don't require constant teamwork, but they appreciate meaningful connection. Their ideal space is one where they can operate independently within a cooperative framework, respected, heard, and trusted. When placed in roles that honor both their independence and their desire to contribute, they become steady forces of order, service, and dignified leadership. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra experience, association versus dissociation. Some individuals live life from within, deeply engaged, emotionally present, and fully immersed in their experiences. Others experience life from a slight distance, observing, analyzing, and maintaining a buffer between themselves and emotional intensity. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, ego, clarity, responsibility, and co-ruled by Mercury, intellect, discernment, tends to lean toward association, especially when honor, commitment, or service is involved. These natives want to be present, dependable, and integrated in what they do. Yet when overburdened, disrespected, or emotionally taxed, they can shift into dissociation, detaching to maintain composure or preserve function. Their tendency to associate or dissociate depends on planetary placements, particularly in the 4th, 5th, and 10th houses, where emotional vulnerability meets duty and public presence. If Moon is in the 4th house, the experience is strongly associated. These individuals feel deeply, especially when it comes to home, emotional security, or private bonds. In Uttara Phalguni, this placement fosters nurturing through responsibility. They are emotionally present in their roles, especially within the family or caregiving environments. If Moon is in the 10th, that association turns public. They become emotionally invested in their work, leadership, or how they're perceived. Their emotional well-being becomes intertwined with professional performance. If Mercury is in the 5th house, the experience leans toward dissociation through intellect. These individuals may observe emotion, analyze expression, or step back in romantic or creative situations to maintain clarity. In Uttara Phalguni, this manifests as thoughtful participation. They care, but often prefer to reflect before reacting. If Mercury is in the 10th, the dissociation becomes a professional skill. They know when to stay composed, when to communicate rationally, and when to detach emotionally to get things done. If Saturn is in the 4th house, the dissociation is protective and disciplined. These individuals may have grown up suppressing emotional responses in favor of duty or control. In Uttara Phalguni, this reinforces emotional restraint. They associate with service but distance themselves from emotional overwhelm. If Saturn is in the 10th, this detachment becomes a leadership tool. They keep their feelings private while fulfilling external obligations, often appearing stoic or overly controlled in public roles. If K2 is in the fifth house, the experience is naturally dissociative, especially in creative, romantic, or expressive spaces. These individuals may struggle to feel fully engaged in love or joy, operating more through detachment or spiritual distance. In Uttara Phalguni, this creates tension between their desire to serve and their tendency to emotionally check out when expression feels unsafe or disillusioning. If K2 is in the first, this dissociation becomes part of identity. They appear composed, selfless, or removed, often feeling disconnected from their own presence even when fulfilling their role. Uttara Phalguni's instinct is to show up, to be reliable, present, and sincere. Their association with experience is driven by purpose, not emotional indulgence. Yet when duty overshadows self or connection threatens their equilibrium, they can pull back, not out of indifference, but out of preservation. Their growth lies in learning when to be fully present and when to detach with awareness, not repression. When balanced, they become dignified anchors in both heart and mind, able to engage with devotion and step back with discernment. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra approach, matching versus mismatching. Some individuals naturally seek alignment, looking for what fits, flows, and confirms expectations. Others are wired to notice what's off, what needs improvement, correction, or doesn't quite add up. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the Sun, harmony, order, and co-ruled by Mercury, analysis, logic, leans toward a matching approach by default. These natives are driven to create systems, relationships, and environments that feel stable, ethical, and cooperative. They like when things make sense and align with their inner standards of fairness and structure. However, their Mercury influence sharpens their eye for flaws. So under stress or when entrusted with responsibility, they can shift into a mismatching mindset, noticing and correcting what doesn't work. Their dominant lens depends on planetary placements, especially in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses, where communication, service, and public accountability are tested. If Sun is in the 1st or 10th house, the native tends toward matching. These individuals are motivated by principle and purpose. They seek alignment between action and values, and between people and roles. In Uttara Phalguni, this translates into a desire to bring structure and consistency into the spaces they serve. They often assume that if everyone fulfills their role, harmony will follow. If Sun is in the 10th, this becomes professional. They try to embody the ideals they want to see in the world and surround themselves with people or systems that reflect shared values. If Mercury is in the 3rd house, the approach begins to lean mismatching. These individuals are detail-focused, quick to spot contradictions or errors, especially in communication, planning, or strategy. In Uttara Phalguni, this Mercury brings a desire to improve, not from criticism, but from service. If Mercury is in the 10th, the mismatching becomes a public strength. They may rise in roles that require editing, evaluating, or optimizing systems or language for greater clarity and function. If Moon is in the 4th or 7th house, the approach becomes emotionally matching. These natives seek relational and emotional alignment. They want emotional safety, resonance, and mutual understanding. In Uttara Phalguni, they strive to maintain a harmonious emotional environment, often adjusting themselves to preserve peace. However, if they sense inconsistency or dishonesty, they may shift into mismatching, emotionally withdrawing, or quietly pointing out what's off. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the mismatching tendency is heightened and structured. These individuals operate through refinement. They are diligent, responsible, and often hyper-aware of what isn't functioning efficiently. In Uttara Phalguni, this gives them the ability to reform or lead within systems, but also a tendency to become overly rigid or critical if standards aren't met. They mismatch to protect order, often stepping in to fix what others have missed. If Jupiter is in the 3rd or 9th house, the approach softens back toward matching, but with wisdom and meaning. These individuals seek coherence between knowledge, values, and expression. In Uttara Phalguni, Jupiter encourages pattern recognition with a moral or philosophical lens. They still spot discrepancies, but they ask, how can this be brought into alignment with something greater? Their mismatching, when it arises, is thoughtful and expansive, not nitpicky. Uttara Phalguni thrives on alignment and purpose. They naturally match people to roles, ideals to actions, and effort to ethics. But they're also built to correct, refine, and elevate systems when things feel unjust, inefficient, or unbalanced. Their evolution lies in knowing when to pursue harmony and when to use their insight to make things better, not just smoother. When they balance these instincts, they become quiet reformers, upholding what's working and compassionately transforming what isn't. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra time experience, in time versus through time. Some individuals live in time, fully immersed in the present, responding moment to moment, emotionally or energetically engaged with what's unfolding now. Others experience life through time, aware of timelines, patterns, consequences, and long-term purpose, acting with foresight and reflection. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the sun, future-oriented, legacy-driven, and co-ruled by Mercury, logical, organized, leans toward a through-time orientation. These natives are often focused on building something lasting, whether in relationships, work, or service. They think in terms of structure, order, and sustainability. Yet when emotionally stirred or drawn into relational or creative flow, they can temporarily shift into in-time responsiveness. Planetary placements in the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses help reveal how time is experienced, whether it's lived in the moment or managed through vision and planning. If Sun is in the 1st house, the experience is strongly through time. These individuals are conscious of who they're becoming, how they're seen, and what their actions mean over time. In Uttara Phalguni, this brings a dignified sense of pacing. They act with intention, often choosing long-term impact over instant gratification. If Sun is in the 10th, this tendency deepens. They operate with legacy in mind, thinking about how current efforts will shape their future, reputation, or contributions to society. If Moon is in the 4th house, the time experience leans toward in time, especially on the emotional level. These individuals respond to inner tides, domestic shifts, or mood-driven decisions. In Uttara Phalguni, this manifests as devotion to the emotional moment. They may delay decisions until they feel right, regardless of long-term strategy. If Moon is in the 10th, they strive to appear measured, but their inner world still reacts to real-time emotional dynamics, especially in public or leadership roles. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 10th house, the time orientation becomes mentally through time. These individuals track events, plan logically, and function well with schedules and routines. In Uttara Phalguni, Mercury supports their natural love of structure. They think ahead, anticipate needs, and break down time into manageable units. In professional settings, they are often the ones holding timelines, organizing projects, or preparing for the next step before others even notice it's needed. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the through-time pattern becomes dominant and disciplined. These natives often carry an awareness of responsibility, karma, and cause and effect. In Uttara Phalguni, Saturn reinforces their duty-bound mindset. They may act slowly, but with precision, driven by an inner clock that measures consequences. Their planning tends to be long-term and purpose-driven, with every move anchored in endurance and accountability. If Rahu is in the 1st or 7th house, the experience can skew in time, but in a restless, future-chasing way. These individuals often feel a pull to act now, to achieve, transform, or claim something in the present moment, even if it disrupts long-term goals. In Uttara Phalguni, this creates internal tension. They crave meaning and stability, but may get swept up in short-term ambition or external validation. Their task is to align present impulses with future integrity. Uttara Phalguni is naturally wired to pace itself wisely, to act today in a way that honors tomorrow. While they can respond in the moment when necessary, their strength lies in planning, sustaining, and growing with consistency. Their evolution comes from embracing both the value of now and the wisdom of later, learning when to hold a long view and when to honor the emotional moment without losing track of where they're headed. When balanced, they become timekeepers of purpose, steady, visionary, and gracefully aligned with the rhythm of progress. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, primary interest motivation, people, activities, places, or things. Some individuals are driven by their bond with people, relationships, support, connection, and mutual growth. Others are fueled by activities, what they do, solve, or create. For some, places provide a sense of purpose, settings that offer meaning, memory, or context. And others are grounded in things, structure, resources, material mastery, or tools of function. Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra, ruled by the sun, duty, self-expression, and co-ruled by Mercury, logic, service, is often motivated by people and activities, especially when those relationships or efforts are grounded in service, partnership, or shared values. These natives thrive when what they do supports others and reflects their ethical core. Still, under certain planetary influences, particularly in the 1st, 3rd, 6th, and 10th houses, their core interest may shift toward environments or systems that offer stability, identity, or mastery. If Sun is in the 1st or 7th house, people are the primary motivator, especially in the form of relationships that reinforce their purpose, identity, or integrity. In Uttara Phalguni, this manifests as a deep need to be seen and respected within partnerships or group dynamics. They want to serve others, but also want to be honored for how they show up. If Sun is in the 10th, this people focus becomes professional. They seek roles where they can guide, uplift, and earn public respect through meaningful connections. If Mercury is in the 3rd or 6th house, the motivation shifts toward activities. These natives love the act of doing, communicating, organizing, planning, fixing, or refining. In Uttara Phalguni, Mercury adds mental sharpness to service. They're driven by tasks that require intelligence, logic, and clarity. Whether it's writing, systems design, or problem solving, their motivation is rooted in action that improves or supports others. If Mercury is in the 10th, this becomes their career path. They find fulfillment through structured, meaningful work. If Moon is in the 4th or 10th house, the motivation leans toward places, particularly those tied to emotional security, identity, or legacy. In Uttara Phalguni, the Moon gives emotional weight to setting. They may be driven by the need to establish a secure home or a respected public presence. They associate places with roles and roles with belonging. Whether it's the home they build or the space they hold at work, where they are matters as much as what they do. If Saturn is in the 6th or 10th house, the focus leans toward things, but not for luxury's sake. These natives are drawn to systems, responsibilities, and tools that offer long-term results and purpose. In Uttara Phalguni, Saturn brings a slow-burning motivation. They want things to function well, last long, and carry weight. Whether it's an organization, a method, or a professional structure, they're motivated by what can be built, maintained, or perfected. If Rahu is in the 1st or 10th house, motivation becomes more complex, often tied to a craving for recognition, power, or success. These individuals may appear service-oriented, but are driven by a deeper desire to stand out, rise above, or leave a mark. In Uttara Phalguni, this can be channeled into purposeful ambition, but if ungrounded, may lead to chasing status without meaning. They must learn to align outer achievement with inner values. Uttara Phalguni's deepest motivation is to serve with purpose, to work, relate, and lead in ways that bring order, healing, and dignity. Whether through people they uplift, activities they manage, places they sustain, or things they perfect, their drive is always centered on meaningful contribution. When aligned, they become pillars of integrity, steady, motivated, and deeply respected for what they give and how they give it.